So with the second Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania trailer coming out last week, we can officially say that we're into Phase 5 of the MCU. Finally. My primary thoughts on the trailer is that it was a good, solid trailer. It did maybe feel a bit long to me, but I got everything I expected to from a Marvel trailer. I know the good guys and the bad guys, I know the rough plot, and I have a decent idea of how it's going to end, again, roughly. How it ends is actually the interesting part and is what I'm most interested in. As I see it, the ending of this movie could go one of two ways. One, Ant-Man is defeated, killed, whatever, he's taken out of the picture and Kang's plan advances unperturbed, or Ant-Man escapes with the others to give the movie a happy-ish ending, and he's then able to alert the other Avengers of the problem, but Kang's plan still proceeds. Notice that for Phase 5 to be any good, Kang cannot be defeated in this movie. Maybe a small setback, but nothing major. Otherwise, he'll appear weak, and our fear of his presence is diminished if not destroyed. There will be much less tension in all the other movies since Kang has already been beaten once before, by Ant-Man, no less. It's the same problem that afflicted Kylo Ren in the Star Wars sequel trilogy after Rey beat him in their first battle in the first movie of a movie trilogy. Kylo was no longer intimidating after that, and the story of the following movies heavily reflected that. So, although the second possible ending, where Ant-Man escapes, is probably more likely, it would be more interesting if Marvel went with the first ending. Ant-Man dying by Kang's hand, or at least being taken out of the picture somehow, would make Kang a far more terrifying and hated villain, which is good. It would also suggest a different take on the overall narrative than usual, one where side characters get quietly taken out while the main hero, in this case the Avengers, continues on unaware. It's a concept used in some horror movies, and for lack of a better example, variations of it get used a couple of times in the Lego Ninjago series. This narrative would really build tension in the series and give the audience a sense of dread. Whichever character gets a movie next might be the one next taken out, and so on, until just a few Avengers are left for the big fight in Phase 6. However, that's not likely to be the case. To see why, we need to take one last look at Phase 4. To put it simply, overall, Phase 4 was rough for the MCU. There were a ton of projects, several introducing new characters unrelated to anything else we'd seen previously. They often had weak, messy, or generic stories that were seemingly more interested in shilling for various socio-political ideologies than advancing characters' arcs in meaningful ways. And, worse still, they were often closed-loop stories. At the end, things were the same as at the beginning, and nothing had really changed in-universe. The bad guy was defeated, the world went back to normal, the overarching plot of the MCU stood still. Out of the 15 or so movies and shows we got over the past 2 years, only 3 really progressed the multiverse saga: WandaVision, Loki, and the Multiverse of Madness. In these 3, the story did take significant steps forward. At the start of WandaVision, Wanda was occupying a town and living in a fantasy. By the end, she had left the town and was back in the real world, setting up Doctor Strange 2. At the beginning of Loki, there was one sacred timeline, but by the end, there were many. And at the start of the Multiverse of Madness, well, Scarlet Witch was mad, we didn't have America Chavez yet, and Doctor Strange had only 2 eyes. Yeesh. The 2 Wanda-centric stories are significant mostly because it's likely that Wanda and Doctor Strange are going to be key players in Phases 5 and 6 given their power set, so their stories hold more weight than the others. But obviously the most important of the 3 is Loki, since that show not only created all the multiverse problems for Phases 5 and 6, but also introduced Kang, albeit indirectly. Honestly, Loki, the show, is so important to the MCU that I wonder if it should have been a movie. The show was only 6 episodes, it could probably have been cut down to movie length. That would guarantee it the viewership it needed, and help it stand out more among the numerous other Phase 4 projects. Nevertheless, 3 out of 15 is pretty poor for a grand narrative, and as a result, Phase 4 felt aimless, slow, and uninteresting. People have been tuning out, and not just because the movies are poorly written. Now, it's true that many movies, especially one-offs, have the closed-loop structure, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Some of the stories in Phase 4 were decent. For example, I enjoyed Moon Knight, despite it having no bearing whatsoever on the rest of the MCU. I actually liked it a little bit more for that fact. It was refreshing in a way. However, in an interconnected, ongoing universe, having too many one-offs can easily kill the momentum, and with it, enthusiasm. So now, Ant-Man Quantumania has a bit of an upward battle. It has to be good enough to reel back in fans who are drifting from the MCU, and it has to build up the momentum Phase 4 failed to gain. It's a tough job, and at this point, it's questionable if the rest of the current Phase 5 lineup will be adding to or even maintaining that momentum. Of the 12 currently slated projects, only Ant-Man and Loki are obviously going to deal with the Kang storyline. Now, we don't know much about any of the other projects besides Secret Invasion and Guardians 3, so what they will be about is speculation at this point. But from the trailers, it seems clear that neither Secret Invasion nor Guardians 3 will deal with Kang. Secret Invasion, as I understand it, is even kicking off a second main plot thread of the MCU, the Secret Wars, which will end with its own Avengers movie in Phase 6. With two story threads running simultaneously in the MCU, you'd think the projects would split roughly half and half between them, but no. Guardians looks like its own thing, as always. Echo is a spin-off of a spin-off with its own plotline. Blade is its own thing, Ironheart might connect but who knows, and Daredevil might connect to Echo but otherwise probably will stand alone. Presumably, the Marvels, the Agatha show, and Captain America New World Order will relate to the larger stories, but again, at this point, who knows? At least Thunderbolts will tie together some of Phase 4 since it's basically another Avengers team for anti-heroes. But that's also a solid year and a half away from release. It seems then that Phase 5 is in danger of repeating Phase 4's big mistake. Too many unrelated projects off doing their own thing, not enough focused on advancing the main plot, or plots in this case. If there's one upside, it's that Phase 5 isn't introducing tons of new characters like Phase 4 did. Only Blade is new to the MCU, all the other content is continuing or spinning off of stories from earlier. In a sense, Phase 4 set the stage, and Phase 5 is now acting out a play. The question is whether that play will tell a unified, coherent story or not. So, although the Ant-Man Quantumania trailer looks good, really good, I'd say, it seems like the movies and shows following it might struggle to carry that narrative momentum forward, at least for the Kang plot. The Secret Wars thread might be more successful, for reasons I won't get into in this video. Hopefully I'm proved wrong about this. Kang gets the tense, impactful story he deserves, and the MCU is able to build to another epic climax in Phase 6, because otherwise it could end up like certain other famous movie franchises I know of. But that's my take. Let me know what you think in the comments. How'd you like the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania trailer? Are you excited for that movie? What do you think of the prospects of Phase 5? Whatever the case, like the video if you liked it, please consider subscribing, and hopefully I'll see you in another video. Goodbye.